The quiet tenant. In the spring of 2013, a woman named Danielle Roberts, a 32-year-old freelance illustrator, moved to a quiet duplex in Allentown, Pennsylvania. The place was a steal $600 a month for the upper unit, including utilities. The only condition, she had to live above the landlord's long-term tenant, who, as the landlord vaguely put it, keeps to himself. Danielle had no complaints. The apartment was cozy, the neighborhood peaceful, and after bouncing from Craigslist rentals for years, she was grateful for some stability. The first month was uneventful. She worked from home most days, sketching for book covers and digital magazines, occasionally walking to the corner coffee shop for inspiration. She almost never saw the downstairs tenant. She heard him sometimes shuffling, creaking floorboards late at night, but no doors slamming, no loud music, no arguments. Still, something felt off. The mailman once handed her a stack of mail, clearly addressed to Unit B, the lower unit, and when she mentioned it to the landlord, he brushed it off, saying, "Just leave it on the downstairs windowsill, he'll get it." She did, but after a few weeks, the mail started piling up. In mid-May, Danielle noticed a faint smell wafting from the floorboards in her kitchen. It was sour, earthy, metallic-like rust and meat. At first, she assumed it was something in the garbage disposal. She cleaned it, scrubbed the counters, even poured bleach down the drain. But the smell got worse. After 3 days, she couldn't take it. She called her landlord. He promised to send someone to check the plumbing. No one came. When she followed up 2 days later, he sounded annoyed. "I told you," he said, "the guy downstairs isn't a problem. He doesn't cook. He probably hasn't even opened a window in months. He's unconventional. Just ignore it." She was speechless. She hadn't mentioned the tenant at all. One night, around 2:30 a.m., Danielle was jolted awake by a sharp sound scrooch, coming from beneath her bed. Not beside it. Beneath. Her heart thudded. She reached for her phone, turned on the flashlight, and leaned over the edge of her bed. Nothing. The floor was clear, except for a thin line of dust, and the cardboard box she kept old sketchbooks in. She listened. Silence. She went back to bed. 5 minutes later, scrrrrrch. This time it was unmistakable. Something or someone was beneath her. She leaped out of bed, yanked the box away, and stared into the shadows. Still nothing. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, she brought her sketchbox into the kitchen to sort through it. At the very bottom, on one of the old covers, was a faint black smear. Something oily. It smelled rancid. That weekend, Danielle went downstairs for the first time to try to talk to the tenant. She knocked on the door, no answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Then, she heard it. The faint sound of breathing from behind the door. She turned and left. Later that day, she called the landlord again. "I really need to speak to you in person," she insisted. "Something's wrong down there. There's a smell. There are noises." He finally agreed to come the next day at noon, but he never showed. Instead, Danielle got a call from an unknown number around 11:30 a.m. A man's voice said, "Stop asking about him. You're being watched." Then he hung up. Danielle went to the police that same afternoon. She reported the call and expressed her concerns about the man living below her. The officer on duty Officer Mandel, told her there were no active reports on that property but agreed to do a welfare check. They visited the house that evening. Danielle waited outside while Officer Mandel knocked on the lower unit's door. No response. He knocked again. Then tried the handle, unlocked. He stepped inside. Danielle heard nothing for almost a full minute. Then Mandel came back out, pale and silent. "Ma'am," he said, "please come with me." Inside the lower unit was a scene from a horror film. The entire apartment was filled with filth, mold, and rotting food. But that wasn't the worst of it. In the bedroom was a bed frame with leather restraints bolted into it. In the bathroom, a stack of VHS tapes, all unlabeled, and in the kitchen, freezer wrapped in plastic, carefully labeled, were human remains. The tenant, according to the police report that later came out, had been dead for at least 4 months. He'd died of a heart attack, alone, unnoticed. So who had been moving around? Who made the noises she heard at night? That's what investigators wanted to know. The tapes provided a chilling answer. When the police reviewed the tapes, they found footage of several women being filmed through windows, under beds, even inside bathrooms. Some of them matched reports of missing persons from earlier that year. But the most disturbing footage came from a camera that had been hidden inside the vent leading into Danielle's bedroom. She had been filmed, sleeping, multiple times, and not by the man who had died downstairs. In fact, in the days after the autopsy confirmed the downstairs tenant had died months ago, the FBI got involved. The tapes dated after the time of death revealed something terrifying. A different man, wearing the dead tenant's clothes, had been living in the unit, quietly, slipping in and out without being noticed. Squatting in a dead man's apartment, watching Danielle, sometimes entering her unit when she wasn't home. He was never caught. Danielle moved out within 48 hours. She never returned. The landlord, who apparently hadn't checked on his own property in over 4 months, was fined and later evicted from owning any rental properties in the county. And the man caught on the tapes. The police believe he may have been using the dead man's identity, possibly even helping himself to checks, utilities, and more. But no trace of him was ever found, not a fingerprint. Not a single clue beyond the horrifying footage he left behind. Danielle now lives under a new name in another state. She no longer takes freelance work that requires her to be alone at home for extended periods. And to this day, she refuses to live anywhere with a lower-level apartment beneath her. The Man in the Crawlspace, based on true events in Tacoma, Washington, 2017. It started with a missing cup of coffee. Megan Halloran, a 28-year-old veterinary assistant, had just moved into a small one-story rental home in Tacoma, Washington. It was her first time living alone, and though the place was a little old and creaky, she loved it. A 1940s bungalow with original fixtures and a slightly uneven porch, but it was hers. Her first week was uneventful. She worked long shifts at the animal clinic, came home tired, and often fell asleep with the TV on. But on the 7th morning, she woke up to find her coffee mug, her favorite one, shaped like a sleepy sloth, missing from the kitchen. She chalked it up to her own disorganization, and shrugged it off. 2 days later, she found it under her bed, with fresh coffee inside it. She hadn't made coffee that day. At first, she thought she was losing her mind. Sleep deprivation. Maybe she got up in the middle of the night and forgot. But the smell of the coffee was different. It wasn't the brand she used. She always drank hazelnut. This was something else. Burnt, bitter, almost sour. She threw the mug in the dishwasher and told herself it was nothing. Over the next week, little things started going wrong. A drawer left open. A cereal box moved to the wrong shelf. Her toothbrush damp in the middle of the afternoon. On a Saturday morning, Megan decided to set up her phone to record the kitchen while she went for a jog. It was more for fun than anything. She wasn't seriously expecting to find anything. When she got back, she opened the video and sat down to watch. Nothing happened for 10 minutes. Then, at 7:14 a.m., her jaw dropped. From behind the old pantry door, which she'd always assumed was just a broom closet, hand appeared, pale, male, dirty fingernails. The door opened slowly, and a man tall, thin, unshaven, merged silently into her kitchen. He was barefoot, wearing a stained gray sweatshirt, and moved like he already knew where everything was. He opened her fridge, drank orange juice from the bottle, then took a cup down from the shelf and poured himself some coffee. Her coffee. Then, he turned toward the camera. For one agonizing second, he stared directly into the lens. Then he smiled. She stopped the video, locked every door, called the police. When they arrived, she showed them the footage. They cleared the house, room by room. Nothing. The pantry door was empty. It opened onto a shallow utility closet with a shelf, some old paint cans, and a broom. No man. No sign of forced entry. The officers asked if anyone had a key. She said only the landlord. She called the landlord, who insisted no one else had a copy. The place has been empty for months before you moved in. You're the first tenant in a while. That night, Megan barely slept. She dragged her dresser in front of the pantry door. Every creak of the house made her flinch. At 3 a.m., she thought she heard footsteps from inside the walls, but told herself it was just rats or pipes. The next day, she bought 3 battery-powered motion sensor cameras. She placed one in the kitchen, one in the living room, and one in the hallway by her bedroom. That night, she hit record on all of them, and left every light in the house on. The next morning, she found all 3 cameras disabled, not unplugged, not powered off, smashed as if someone had taken a hammer to each one, while carefully avoiding making too much noise. That's when she decided to stay at a hotel. She left the house that evening, brought only a backpack and her phone, and checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of Tacoma. She called in sick to work. Didn't tell anyone where she was, not even her boss. She wanted to believe that being away would break the cycle, that maybe it was some sick prank, and the guy would get bored and leave. But then, at 2:43 a.m., her phone buzzed. A notification from her security app, motion detected hallway camera. She stared at it in disbelief. She hadn't even known the hallway cam had been functional. She opened the clip. It showed her hallway just as she'd left, except now. The pantry door was wide open. The man was back. He stood in the hallway, holding one of her t-shirts, sniffing it, slowly walking toward her bedroom door. The clip ended before he reached it. The timestamp was from after she'd left. The man had no way of knowing she wasn't home, but he'd entered anyway. That morning, she called the police again. This time, she insisted they tear open the walls. There's a crawl space, she said. That pantry goes somewhere. He has to be hiding in the house. Reluctantly, the police brought a building inspector. They found it. Behind the wall in the pantry was a small, square panel, painted the same color as the wood. Invisible unless you knew where to look. When they pried it open, they found a crawlspace about 3 feet high leading under the floorboards and into the attic above the bedroom. Inside the space, they found a sleeping bag, a small box of crackers, empty water bottles, a notebook. The notebook was the worst part. In it were pages of Megan's name, written over and over again. Notes on her habits. What time she woke up. What she watched on Netflix. What she wore to bed. What she talked to herself about. He had been living in the walls for at least 2 weeks, and he had been listening to everything. The police estimated the man had entered the house during a showing or open house, weeks before Megan ever moved in. Possibly even when the landlord had been repainting it. He had found a place to hide and never left. The notebook included drawings, crude, disturbing sketches of Megan sleeping, eating, sitting at her desk. None of these moments had been visible from anywhere in the house. There were also notes about first contact, and test runs, and the door creaks less if you lift it. But he was gone. Despite extensive searching, the man was never caught. Police believed he fled during the day Megan first left for the hotel. They found traces of hair and skin in the crawlspace, but no fingerprint matches in the system. The case remained open. Megan, traumatized, moved back in with her parents in Oregon. She never lived alone again. 2 months after she left Tacoma, she received a letter at her old address. The landlord forwarded it to her. There was no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. It said, "You sleep with your mouth slightly open. You dream about drowning." She never opened another letter from Tacoma again.